Hello, welcome. My name is Emmanuel John. I'm a JAMB coach preparing students for this year's JAMB. I believe you clicked this video because you are also preparing for JAMB, but let me show you something very quickly. Okay, look at these questions carefully. Let me start with question 1. Look at this. You have two perpendicular forces, two forces acting perpendicular to each other, and you are asked to calculate a resultant force. These are real JAMB questions under vectors and scalar. Can you solve this? Alright, let's look at question 2 and 3. Alright, question 2 and 3 are also from JAMB questions. I just went through JAMB past questions. In fact, I could just pick a few because I cannot pick all questions under scalar. I did this to show you something. Alright, question 2 says, a quantity which requires magnitude and direction to be specified is... Okay, do you see the options there? Do you know the answer? Okay, let's look at question 3. Question 3 says, which of the following is not a vector quantity? Force, altitude, weight, displacement. Do you know the correct answer? Okay, look at another one. Look at the shape. 3 different force vectors in a triangle. Now, you are asked the resultant force, the resultant vector. Do you know how to answer this question? Alright, let me tell you now. I observed over the years that JAMB asks questions under the scalar and vectors. And vector resolutions precisely. If you don't know how to answer these questions, you may not be able to tackle JAMB questions that will be coming this year. And that's why I said these are frequently repeated questions that you should know how to answer before you get into exam hall. Now, what I'm going to do today, I'm going to teach you how to answer questions like this, especially those with calculations. You cannot predict. In fact, I see some years that in as much as they ask questions like question 2 and 3, which are very simple, they also ask along with vector resolutions. These questions are very simple and I wouldn't like you to miss any. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you how to answer these questions. But before then, I will give you a concise explanation of what vectors and scalar are and resolution of vector forces. I just want that by the time you finish watching this video, you should be able to answer questions like this and similar to this. Okay, by the way, if you are my student, welcome. You guys have been making me proud. I'm so proud with your participation, your assignments, 9/10, 10/10, your biology assignment for yesterday. It was wow. You guys are making me proud. So today again, we are having physics. I'm going to walk you through these questions as usual. And how to answer. I want to make sure that any question that JAMB will mistakenly ask this year, which I know they will, under scalar and vector, you should be able to answer. They will, because I've observed over the years, there is no year you will not see question under it. So I want to prepare you on scalar and vector today, my student. If this is your first time of coming across my videos, don't worry. I have a group of students that I'm coaching together. We are using different platforms to learn. Yesterday, I have a meeting on Microsoft Teams with some of my students. We do mental drills, we do assignments, we do quizzes, just a rigorous training to make sure that we are well prepared for this year's exams. So now I'm going to explain to you vector, scalar quantities, and vector resolutions. Thereafter, I'm going to give you some questions as assignments. If you are a new student and you are just coming across my videos for the first time and you wish to be part of my training group, reach out by writing in a comment box, I'm interested in joining your group. Then I'll find a way to add you. Thank you once again. Let's go right into it. Let's understand this thing once and for all. Just settle down, sit properly, devote your time, a little time, and master this topic once and for all, so that you know once you have left this scalar and vector, you know that you are well prepared to face any question you may be asked in exam under this topic. Thank you, and let's proceed. Now, we are going to come back to these questions, but I want to explain to you so that by the time I finish my explanation, you should be able to answer this, especially these calculation questions. Are you following? And many more. Thank you. So let's proceed. All right. What are scalar quantities? Scalar quantities are quantities that have magnitude, but they don't have direction. What do we mean by magnitude? It means they have measurement, they can be measured, they can be quantified, but without specified direction. Now, example of scalar quantities are time, mass, temperature, distance. There are many. We are going to look at them, of course. We are going to look at them. Now, why are they referred to as scalar quantities? They are referred to as scalar quantities because they have magnitude, but they don't have direction. Now, if JAMB asks a question, a quantity that has magnitude but no direction is called dash, and they give you options. I hope you will not forget that they are talking about scalar. Scalar has magnitude, you can measure it, but it doesn't have specified direction. Okay, as we continue, you understand what I mean by this specified direction I'm talking about. I know you might not comprehend it very well now. You'll be thinking, which specified direction is Mr. Emmanuel talking about again? Okay, by the time I explain more things, you would get it. I just want you to master this topic once and for all. Get everything in details, because expect question from this place. Expect question. Let's go. All right, what are vectors? Vectors, on the contrary, they are quantities that have both magnitude and direction. Okay, now understanding vectors will help us to be able to differentiate between vectors and scalar quantities. Because I was talking about direction, maybe you don't know what is this direction talking about. Okay, now let's take example. When we talk about velocity, velocity has direction. If you are measuring velocity, it has direction. For example, if I say 30 meters per second to the east, that's direction. I'm giving direction of the velocity, making it a vector quantity. But if I'm measuring mass, can I say 20 kilogram to the west? Does that matter? Do you get my point now? You don't need direction when you are dealing with scalars. They have magnitude, but they don't have direction at all. Do you get it? Or I would say a force of 30 Newton is acting on an object to the west, upwards, or downward. That's direction. In fact, force always have direction. So if you are pushing or you are pulling, do you see that you are applying force towards a direction? That's what we mean by that. So all quantities that have magnitude, that is, they can be measured, they can be quantified, they have size, and have direction, they are referred to as vector quantities. I hope this is clear. I hope this is clear. All right, so look at this arrow that I have here. I have the head and the tail, and then magnitude. Magnitude, I've already explained magnitude. It has to do with size, it has to do with quantity, it has to do with the value you can use to measure. Now, let's assume this is a force. I'm pushing something in this direction. This is to the right. Let's say I'm applying 10 Newton force. So 10 Newton force to the right. That's direction. A vehicle is moving at the speed of velocity of 30 meters per second. In which direction? Does a car just drive anyhow? No, it has a direction. If it is going to Lagos, it has a direction depending on your own location, depending on where you are standing to measure its movement. So this is what we mean by vector quantities. As we proceed, you are still going to get more understanding of this. All right, so understand the key difference. Expect question from this. If they would ask anything, because if go and even check their syllabus, what's their syllabus talking about? Their syllabus is saying the student should be able to differentiate between scalar and vector quantities. It means they can ask you question because that's the objective. That's one of the objectives. That's one of the things that is expected. So please know the difference. Now let's look at the first image there that have cycles. So the first one says meters per second, and the second one, which is a vector, meter per second, north, east. Do you see? In the first one, which is scalar, it has no direction. It's just a magnitude. It's just a measurement. It's just size, but it has no direction. But look at the second one. There is now a specified direction. There is now a specified direction. So this is what we refer to as a vector quantity with direction. All right, let's look at this image again. So look at this image. This image gives us examples of scalars and vectors, which you should be able to know. All right, so under scalar, we have distance. When we are talking about distance to where? Do you see that no direction, even right from the word? It has no direction. So that is what makes distance to be under scalar. Speed also have no specified direction. You just say speed of 50 meters per second. There is no direction. But now, when you are talking about displacement has to do with a distance between one point and another. So since you are making reference to 2 points, direction comes in. Because you have to make reference to your own position where you are standing, to the position where the object is going. So, and that has to do with direction. So displacement is a vector, but distance is a scalar quantity. But do you notice that even right from their units, distance, you measure distance in what? In meters. That's the SI unit, right? I've dealt with SI units in the past in one of the videos. If you have not mastered that, I have discussed everything around that SI unit measurements that you are likely to be asked also in JAMB this year. Go and watch that video after watching this to make sure that you familiarize yourself. In fact, many videos are there that I have done under different topics just to make sure that I provide a well-rounded preparation. See, if you are relying on past questions alone, it's not enough. This is what I've actually started doing with my students. I will only deal with past questions. I will give them assignments they will submit. We will do mental drills. But later I discovered that past questions alone will not solve the problem. It is better you understand this topic so that once you master a topic, anyhow JAMB want to twist the question, you can understand. But imagine you deal with past questions and they decide not to ask a question on, or they ask it in another form which you are not familiar with. Do you get it? Don't forget, I've mentioned some questions earlier that are fetched out from past JAMB questions, and we are going to solve them. I will solve them. I will not solve them directly, but I will explain everything in such a way that you yourself will just see that, see, so these questions are even simple. That's what you are going to see. So stick and see. Right after this, we are going to solve them. All right, so we have several examples there. Temperature is scalar, it has no direction. Acceleration must be towards a specific direction. Force, I've already said that force must be towards a specific direction. All right, so look at the next image there. We have property, we have example, values, and then we have type. So look at, we have length, 10 meters is scalar quantity. We have displacement, 2 kilometer north in a specified direction. That's a vector quantity. We have force, 5 Newton horizontal. Do you see it? Temperature, 200 degrees Celsius. Mass. Do you see? So just try and know as many more as possible so that once they ask, you will be able to give them back to back. That's how I'm training my students, and they are just improving. In fact, from where we come from to where we are now, if you have started with me from the beginning, you know that we are learning. Yeah, and we are going somewhere. Thank you. Let's go. Yeah, here we are. Now, there is what we call vector resolution under vector operations. So, and listen to me carefully, attentively, and understand this thing once and for all. It is very, very simple. Very, very simple. Now, under vector resolution, I will use example of forces. Vector resolution, it can be forces, it can be direction, distance, displacement rather, not distance. Distance is a vector, is a scalar quantity. So it can be force, it can be displacement, it can be velocity. But I want you to master the principle. Once you understand the principle, finish. Whether they say two cars, so one is moving to the east at so speed, at so velocity or acceleration and or displacement, or one the other side, you have already mastered the principle. You just look at it and smile. See, I won't like you to fail calculation questions. You know why? They are the simplest questions to answer. And the only thing that can make you to fail them is because you don't understand the principle. Get it now. Let me explain. Now, look at the first object A there, or the first image A. Now, in fact, I have seen several questions under this. I just decided to pick one. You see those questions I've shown you? I've seen many of them, but I just decided to pick one. Now look at this question now, look at this image. Now, we have an object. Let's assume that that cycle is a stone. And I tie two ropes on the stone. Now, I gave two small children to hold the ropes. Now, these two children are of different strengths. So let's say one has the ability to pull the stone at 4 Newton and the other one at 2 Newton. Now they are moving on the same direction. One rope here, and they are moving. They are dragging the stone. Now, one is dragging at 4 Newton, one is dragging at 2 Newton. Now, when we are talking about the resultant vector, we are talking about what is the overall effect. What's the overall effect of the force on the object? That's if we are using force. Okay, now since the two of them are dragging the object on the same direction, how do you resolve the vector? What is the resultant effect? The resultant effect is the sum of the two forces. Simple. So it means the resultant force acting on that object is 2 plus 4, which is equal to 6 Newton. Don't be surprised to see this question, no? Yes. Where they would ask you, they may not even show the image. That's one thing you should be smart at. I always like smart students. They may not even show image. They will say, two forces acting on an object on the same direction with force F1 having or equal to 5 Newton, force F2, 10 Newton. What is the resultant force, or determine the resultant force? Simple. They don't have to show the image all the time. Sometimes if they even show the image, it will give you a clue. JAMB is interesting and it's very simple, sincerely, if you know what you do, if you know what you are doing. Okay, so that's that about the first one. So you have already seen the calculation, the resultant force. That's if the resultant force is in the same direction. You have to just understand these words. You just have to understand these few keywords. The same direction, perpendicular to each other, in opposite direction. These three, never forget them. So if the forces are on the same direction, what do? You sum up everything. That will give you the resultant force. Let's look at image number 2. Okay. All right, image number 2 now. Observe carefully. I have two different objects there. Okay, let's assume it's a car. So, and there are two forces. Let's say a number of men. Look at the arrows. Look at the first one there. Look at the arrows before you look at the second one. So we have a certain number of men pulling the car in opposite directions. Do you now see clearly that it's opposite? Look at this arrow is going this way, 20 Newton. The other arrow is going this way, 40 Newton. That is opposite direction. All right, those of us that used to do that game where they will give you rope and this class, they will stand this direction, the other class will stand, and they will be pulling it to see who will cross the line. You know that. All right, so now, will the car move? Yes. In what direction? In the direction where the force is higher. But at what force will it move? It will not move at the same force if there is another opposite force. For example, you don't expect this car to move at 40 Newton when there is an opposite force dragging it on another direction. That's as simple as that. So if the two forces are on opposite direction, acting on opposite direction, you subtract. That's the rule. Once you master these rules, simple. Do you get what I'm trying to say? If the forces are on the same direction, what do? Put together, you add. Because there is no opposite force that is trying to drag the thing away or on the opposite direction. Now, if the two forces are on the same direction, you add. If the two forces are on the opposite direction, you subtract. Now, I'm using force. They may not use force for you. They may use displacement. But just know that the principle is the same. Hope this is clear. Good. Now, so the resultant force here is what? Is 20 Newton, because 40 minus 20 is equal to 20. That's how we get the resultant force. Now let's look at the one below. 25 Newton acting in this direction, 25 Newton acting in this direction. What will be the resultant force? Yes? 0, correct. Why is it 0? Equal forces are acting on the same object on opposite directions. So will there be any effect? There is no resultant effect, because 25 minus 25 is 0. So the car will just remain stationary. It will remain without moving. Is this clear to you? If it's not clear, please ask question. That's why the comment section is there. It's for interaction. Please. And if you can reach me, if you are my student, you can reach me. Send me a DM on WhatsApp. I will respond to you. Okay, let's now go to the Oga, which is, okay. So let's go to this one. Good. This is what we call perpendicular now. This is perpendicular. That's C now. I hope you can see it very clearly. You see two arrows acting perpendicular to each other. Now, where would our object be? The object will be where the two lines meet. It's like this. So the object will be here. One force dragging this way, another force dragging this way. This is a right-angled triangle, 90 degrees. Now, if one force is pulling in this direction, another force is pulling in this direction, which direction do you think the object will move? Depending on the magnitude of the force in each direction, the object will be moving at the center, because there is force this way, there is force this way, so it will be moving at the center. I hope I'm communicating. But how do you then resolve this kind of forces? If you want to resolve these forces, you use what we call Pythagoras theorem. You remember adjacent, opposite, yes, hypotenuse, yes, good, okay. So you've remembered very well. So what did Pythagoras theorem says? It says if you want to find the hypotenuse, you are going to say, okay, hypotenuse is designated C. Let's name the lines. The adjacent is the one below, the opposite, that's the vertical line, then the hypotenuse. Okay, let me use the other image on the other side. The red line there, that's our hypotenuse. The adjacent is the one at the bottom, and the vertical is the opposite, the line that is opposite to the angle. Now, Pythagoras theorem says if you want to find the hypotenuse, you are going to say C square, or hypotenuse square. Hypotenuse square is equal to opposite square plus adjacent square. That is to say, this line, this red line, which serves as the resultant force now, which we are going to calculate, and it will serve as our resultant force. To find it, you are just going to say hypotenuse square is equal to the adjacent square. Then I'm going to show the calculation so you see it very well. Then we have the opposite square. So this is the formula you will use. Now, assuming you are given the resultant force now, that's the hypotenuse, and you are not given the other side, all you need to do is to rearrange the formula, make opposite the subject of formula from hypotenuse square is equal to opposite square plus adjacent square. Just make what you are not given the subject of formula in the equation. But you must first of all know that hypotenuse square is always equal to adjacent square plus opposite square. I hope I'm communicating. Let me make it more practical here so we can see. Okay, so this is a sample question. Two forces acting perpendicular to each other. F1, that's force 1 is 6 Newton and force 2 is 8 Newton. How do you calculate the resultant force? How do you calculate the resultant force? Now, the resultant force is going to be equal to, okay, now it's designated as R here. This R stands for the hypotenuse there. That's the resultant force. I've said it earlier. So it's equal to 6 square, the square root of 6 square plus 8 square. Please, somebody may be asking, where is the square root from? This is simple mathematics, and unfortunately I did not include it here. I hope you understand this, but if not, let me explain. If I have a square is equal to b square plus c square, and I'm not looking for a square, I'm looking for a. How do I make a stand alone? How do I remove the square? To remove the square, just put square root on the other side. We call it square both sides. If you square both sides, the square will cancel the square of a. But to put it in a simple way, if I have a square is equal to b square plus c square, and I'm not looking for a square, I'm looking for a alone, I will say a is equal to, I will just square root the other side, simple, and remove the square from this side. If this is not clear, you must understand this. You should not try to go to exam hall without knowing this. If this is not clear, let me know in the comment section. If need be, I will work it on a paper, make a video again and post it for you. I beg you. I beg you, please, get it. Get it. I would be happy if you really perform very well in this year's JAMB. I'll be happy. Do you know my goal is to have a minimum of 250 students who can score 250 and above in JAMB this year. And thank you all my students for your contribution. Your comments, your likes on the videos have been making the videos go far. And many other students who have interest, who are serious, have been connecting. And I'm so happy with that. So thank you my students, and God will bless you. So if this is not clear, ask question. I would like you to be part of those that will say, Mr. Emmanuel's tutorial has actually helped me, has helped me ace my score, has helped me go score 300, 350. I will be happy. That's my goal. It pains me when I see students who are serious, but they don't have guidance. They don't have, someone that can support them, give them necessary support, both academically, psychologically, and other ways. It pains me. So please, if this is not clear, I beg you again, reach out to me anyhow. Either you ask question in the comment section, try and connect to our WhatsApp group. Just drop comment, I will get back to you. All right, thank you. So that's how we resolved vector. Remember, in one of the questions I have shown earlier, yes, do you remember? So it's more like I've already answered it here. I promise that we are going to answer them. So if you understand this formula, you answer question 1 there. You can be able to answer question 1. Now let's look at question 2. Question 2, the second question talks about 3 forces. 3 forces or 3 vectors. If you have 3 vectors that are arranged side by side in a triangle in sequence, that is to say, this force is moving in this direction, connected to this force moving in this direction, connected to another force moving in this direction, their sum total, the resultant effect, is equal to 0. Now, do you see how many of you now can answer question 4? Hey! Clap for me first. Do you see, these things are just simple understanding the principles. Understanding the principles. Once you understand the principles, you are going to get it. You are going to get it. Now, let's go back to those questions very quickly, just in few seconds. I want us to get back to them in just few seconds. Let's look at them again. Okay, yeah, here we are. Now look at question 1. Can you answer it now? Yes, why not? So what do you do now? You are going to say the resultant force R, though the other line, the hypotenuse, they will not complete it for you. This is how the question will come up. In fact, this is a typical JAMB question. I have said it again and again. Do you get the point? Now, you are going to say resultant force R is equal to the square root of 8 square plus 6 square. That's the two sides that are given, the two perpendicular forces. Simple. Resultant force is equal to 6 square plus 8 square, or 8 square plus 6 square, whichever one you start with, no problem. All right, now let's work it out. Now, R is equal to the square root of 6 square plus 8 square. Now, what is 6 square? 36, of course. What is 8 square? 64, of course. So 64 plus 64 is what? 100. The square root of 100 is what? 10. Thank you. God bless you. Do you now see the correct answer there? Do you see that some of these things, you don't even need calculator, for God's sake? Hi. Oh, I will not write JAMB again. I cannot write JAMB again. I've written my JAMB. I've written my exams. You know what I got in JAMB when I wrote it? My students know. So if I will set a yardstick using my own result, don't score less than 330. Yes. If I will set it based on my own score. So please, get these things are very simple. Now let's look at question 4 again. Let's look at question 4. So question 4 says, look at the diagram. This is just a rule. It's just a rule. Do you see, in few seconds, 3-4 seconds, you answer this question. They say in the diagram above, P, Q, and R are vectors. Which of the following options gives the correct relationship between the vectors. I have said it. If vectors are arranged, if vectors are arranged in a triangle in sequence, and you see that this is sequence, in sequence, what's the resultant? Yes? The resultant will be what? 0. Do you get my point now? I hope this is clear. Alright, so let's go. Okay, I think now I have an assignment for you. Yes. I have an assignment for my students. Okay. Now let me explain this assignment before you go and do it. It's objective, so you can do it. So the first question says, two perpendicular forces act on an object. Two perpendicular forces act on an object. F1 is 5 Newton, that's horizontal, this is horizontal, so 5 Newton, vertical 12 Newton. What is the magnitude of their resultant force? That's the first question. So work it out and get the correct answer for me. Question 2 says, a traveler walks 6 kilometers due east. Do you see another trick of asking question now? Due east, and then 8 kilometers due north. What is the magnitude of the resultant displacement from the starting point? Do you get the question now? I earlier said it's not always force. Displacement can be used. Velocity can be used. Acceleration can be used. All these are what? All these are vectors. So any of them can be used. Now observe. We are still using perpendicular forces or displacement, because the man first move. If this is east, for example, he move east and later he move north. What do you have? Did you get it? So you have two displacement on a right-angled triangle. Now, there are some questions that will come in angles that are not right-angled triangle. Those kinds of questions, you use either sine or cosine rule. But in this case, I don't want to introduce that sine and cosine rule. I didn't see many questions on that. In fact, I've not come across any question that will require you to use sine and cosine rule to calculate the resultant force. So that's why I leave that out. That is a little bit advanced, so maybe that's why they don't like asking. I don't know whether they have asked in the past, but so far questions I've checked, I've not seen where they've asked that. So now look, 8 kilometers to the east, then 6 kilometers to the east, then 8 kilometers to the north. What is the magnitude of resultant displacement? Simple. So it's the same principle. They may decide to use displacement, they may decide to use velocity, but you have to know. Now, let me ask you this. What if they say two forces are acting on an object? One, F1, 10 Newton to the south, and F2, 15 Newton to the north. How do you tackle that? Now, you have to know that south and north are opposite. Yes, so you just subtract. I hope you are getting this trick now. Now, south and west are perpendicular. How do I explain this now? Okay, east and west are opposite. North and south are opposite. But every other one, they are perpendicular. So in case they decide to use east and west, instead of telling you another thing, something that can, instead of saying perpendicular, yes, they may not come out and say perpendicular or opposite directly. Do you get it? They may decide to use north and south, east and west. That's why I just want you to understand the principle. Once you get the principle, finished. I hope this is clear. Thank you. So these are the first two questions for the assignment. Get the values, work them out, pick your correct answer, and I will hear from you. Okay. Okay, question 3. Question 3 says, a particle has a horizontal velocity. Velocity now, okay, of 4 meters per second, and a vertical, do you see it now? Instead of east and west now, horizontal, vertical. Instead of perpendicular, horizontal, vertical. And all these three, they are heading to the same place. So you have to be smart. You just have to be smart. Okay. So vertical and horizontal acting at a right angle triangle. Okay, they are so explicit here, very clear. They said they are acting on a right angle triangle. Okay, what is the resultant speed of the particle? I don't know. Work it out. Oh. Choose your answer. And don't forget, my student, you are to submit to my DM. Don't submit any assignment to the group henceforth. For those of us that join us newly, I saw that mistake yesterday. Somebody was posting his assignment to the group. Don't do that, for God's sake, please. Despite the fact that I've said it, but some students were still submitting. Don't submit assignment, what do we call it? Mental drills to group anymore. Submit to my DM. Yes. Then for quizzes, you are expected to vote the correct answer there in the group. So you are not expected to submit that to me. All right, I hope you get it. So I think this is the last question before we close for today. All right. The last question says, an object experiences two opposite forces. Two opposite force vectors. Do you see that all this now is English? The English will determine whether you are to add, whether you are to subtract, whether you are to go for Pythagoras theorem rule or whatever. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Very simple. Now this one is opposite. Tell me, are we adding or we are subtracting? Subtracting, of course. Hey, I'm trying to answer your assignment question. You guys. Alright, I will cancel this question. Alright, I didn't say it's subtraction. Before you go and say Mr. Emmanuel says subtraction and go and subtract. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Just answer your own question. You know what to do based on all the explanations I've made. Alright, this is the end. Thank you very much. I don't know if you have not subscribed to my channel and you are learning. I have been making videos to help you. Subscribe, like, make comment, invite your friends also to come and learn. If others succeed, it should be your joy. It should be a thing of joy. Just like I am here, I'm doing all my possible. How can I make it a goal that I want a certain number of students to score 250? You yourself will even think, how does that concern you if two persons, but you just have this burden to assist, to help others, students who are serious, it will just be in your own mind, how can I assist these guys? I just want them to do well. See, academic excellence, everybody can excel academically. I tell you the truth. I've shared some of my strategies with some. So it worked for them perfectly. Those who their result was nothing to write home about in the university, it improved. Recently, one of my students at the university who I was assisting, putting through, she just said, Mr. Emmanuel, she was just shouting. I said, what happened now? See, I got A in my project. You don't know what project is, so when you get to the university, you will know. It's the biggest course in the university, 6 credit unit. And in some universities, even more than that. And she had A. She was so happy. And you can't tell how I felt that day. I was so happy. So please, the only way you can help me is to subscribe. If you subscribe, YouTube will help get the videos to others. If you like and make comment, the algorithm will shift the video, help me attract more students that can come and learn. So If you have learned anything, let me know. Say, Mr. Emmanuel, you are doing well. Your explanations are clear. Don't go without commenting. If you have watched this video to the end, and if you have watched it to the end, I salute you. You are doing well. You are among those students who are really serious. You know why? Many will start watching distraction here and there. They are distracted. You cannot go far if you yield to distractions easily. That's just the truth. If you cannot sit down and concentrate, you can never be perfect in anything. That's just it. So, but if you have been able to sit down, see, just tell myself, if you have watched this video to this point, just write, I have watched till the end. Let me know, people. Let me know, my people. Because I'm after serious students. I'm not just after crowd. I'm not after crowd. So again, subscribe now. Subscribe. Hit the notification button. Click on it so that anytime I post new video, you'll be among those that will see it first. I hope you've learned something today. Thank you so much and God bless you. We meet in the next class.